we're going to be shifting gears now, and actually that last panel sort of hinted at moving from a person-based look at influencer marketing to the role of technology. We're going to dive deeper into that to experts in the space here at Open Influence. So my name is Neal Schaffer. I'm honored to have worked with Open Influence to co-author an ebook called How AI is Revolutionizing Influencer Marketing. It's actually inspired the conclusion to a book that I'm writing on influencer marketing that'll be published in February next year with HarperCollins called The Age of Influence, because I believe really, I know a lot of you are consumer-focused brands, but even B2Bs, even nonprofits, even government organizations, I think there's a role for influencers in all marketing for every organization for a lot of different reasons. So, but let's take a step back. And when I worked with Open Influence, I was really impressed by them themselves, calling themselves, they're obviously an agency, a matchmaker, strategy, but also technology and a technology provider. So I wanted to dig deeper into that and what meaning it has for all of you in the room and how it can help you increase your influencer marketing ROI. So that was my introduction. I'll hand it over to you.
I'm Ryan Alley, VP of Product here at Open Influence. Prior to Open Influence, I spent several years building tools and technology that allowed brands to connect with their consumers and really make use of the data and the insights that are out there and available, but a lot of times just aren't actionable or surface data in a way that it's difficult to really understand or use. And that was really one of the interesting things to me about Open Influence and the opportunity here is not only all of the interesting things that are happening in the space, but just the volume of data and the opportunity to provide context and relevance to that.
Awesome. So with that in mind, if you were to do a search for influencer marketing tools, agencies, marketplaces, there's a lot of different providers out there. Yep. And some of them have only been around for a few months, a year or two, but obviously Open Influence has been around for, I think, 6 years, if not more by now. So you've been doing this for a while. You've seen the emergence of influencer marketing as, to quote someone in the last panel, become a mainstream component of the marketing mix. How has these 6 years, 7 years changed your perspective and how you invest in technology to support the market?
Sure. There's been a significant evolution in the types of platforms, the number of platforms. It's really opened up an opportunity for anyone to kind of publish their passion. And with that came just an abundance of data across all the different social channels, but also new types of data and new formats of content within each of the individual channels. The challenge there has really become the noise. You end up with so much data that it's almost difficult to do anything with it. It becomes paralyzing in some cases. And so we've really focused over the last several years on building a platform that allows us and allows our brand and agency partners to make sense of that data, to look at some of that information in context and not just say who has the largest audience, who gets the most likes, who posts about the types of things that we want them to post about. But when we look at all of those things in isolation and say, based on the objectives of the campaign, how do we find the right influencer? How do we make the right decisions up front so we know in the end how that campaign is likely to be executed? That's really been our focus. And that's been the evolution of our technology over the last several years, is finding ways to kind of evolve with the market and provide the right tools and solutions to make good decisions early on.
So almost being able to predict the ROI of a campaign before it even gets started is...
That's the plan.
Right. Okay, so obviously there's a ways to go to be able to do that for every campaign, sure, every influencer. So on the flip side of the evolution of the influencer marketing market and technology, we have AI. Yep. Which has become such a buzzword today, obviously the topic of what I wrote about with your team. Why is it such a buzzword?
I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One, it's a cool, catchy buzzword, right? If you go back a few years, it was API. it came up in every conversation. If there was a question, there was an API that could fix it. So I think in some regards, that's what AI is now. But it's also very prevalent in the conversation because it's a very effective tool for influencer marketing. Because of the volume of data, because of the need for context, there's just a lot of information to try to sift through. And there's a number of things that you can leverage in terms of machine learning and different AI-focused tools like image recognition to take some of the upfront work off of your plate and allow the people to focus on the aspects of that equation that require human intervention. And so AI has been a game changer in influencer marketing because it allows you to take these vast quantities of data, sift through it quickly, and really isolate just the pieces and parts that are going to be most meaningful to the campaign you're looking to execute.
So do you wake up in the middle of the night fearful that AI is going to someday take over your job?
Skynet is real. I think, AI is going to change jobs. It's going to change my job. It's probably going to change everyone's job here. But in no different a way than how technology has changed jobs for everyone over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So do I think there are things that people are doing manually today that will go away? Absolutely. But that'll also introduce new opportunities across the board for jobs and workflows that didn't exist last year, 2 years ago.
So, influencer marketing obviously involves, as the last panel talked about, human relations.
Yep.
So on the one hand, you have content creators. They're all unique in their own ways. They want to work with certain brands, not with others, under certain conditions that others would not want to work under. On the other hand, you have data
Yep.
and AI. So how do you balance human insights with the data?
Influencer marketing is different than, other forms of paid digital. You're not buying a spot on a page. You're essentially renting creative time from a person who's going to create content. And there's a human element to that just can't be replaced. And so what AI allows us to do is say, we're going to take a lot of the kind of more mundane aspects of identifying influencers and sifting through millions of accounts and billions of data points, and we can use those tools to say we're going to save all of that time for the person to handle the pieces that require a human touch. So interfacing with the individual influencers. Reviewing the content, kind of negotiating the various terms and aspects of the campaign. So there's always going to be that human piece of managing a campaign. And by introducing AI and allowing kind of some of the more mundane data sifting and identification pieces to be handled programmatically, that allows the people who are executing the campaigns to spend more time and focus more closely on the aspects of the campaign that actually require a human touch.
So can you give us maybe a concrete example of how the AI-infused data is helping humans in your company provide better insight to their customers for campaigns?
Sure. So I think there's a few examples. One would be identifying influencers or types of content that are going to be relevant for a campaign that don't necessarily post about verbally about the types of things that we're looking for. So, for example, we've had partners who have come to us and said, "I'm looking for people who wear glasses." Well, people wear glasses in their photos, but they don't typically, caption it. It's not, "Hey, here's this picture of me. I wear glasses." But through some of our tools and technology, we're able to look at our data set and say, just off the bat, show me only people who wear glasses in their photos. Or, if we're looking for people who participate in specific activities, whether it's soccer or basketball, sometimes they'll talk about it, but more often they'll be posting content related to it, and the captions and comments may be very different. And so we're able to isolate that content very quickly without someone having to go through and kind of manually troll through thousands or millions of posts.
So you sort of wonder how companies can do influencer marketing without that technology, what they miss out on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other piece of it is surfacing context and relevance. So being able to understand, not necessarily who gets a lot of likes, who gets a lot of comments, who has a large audience, but more specifically, who posts the type of content and who has an audience that's highly engaged with that type of content, specifically in the context of situations that are relevant to the objectives of the campaign. And that is a very cumbersome task if you're trying to do it manually. And so being able to do that programmatically saves a ton of time up front.
And makes a more accurate decision, obviously.
Absolutely.
So you've touched upon how you can be using this technology to help filter out and help with influencer identification, which is always one of the key components of influencer marketing. How many of you, on the flip side, let's talk about the dark side of influencer marketing. How many of you feel that fake influencers is a big issue that still needs to be resolved in the industry today? Raise your hand. And usually, a lot of people think it's a big issue. How can we apply your technology on the flip side to help finding and avoiding who these fake influencers might be, or in some cases, irrelevant influencers?
Yeah. So ideally, it's something that we prevent up front. There are a lot of indicators of fake influencers or fraudulent activity, but it also requires some degree of context. Everyone's always going to have some number of followers that are fake followers, or some amount of engagement that's being driven by a bot. And you can't control that, they can't control that. There are cases where it's pretty obvious that maybe they had a hand in it, but that's not always the case. So there are a number of things that tie into what fake engagement or fraudulent activity might look like. We try to identify that in the influencer selection process, so that we don't have to deal with it through the course of the campaign. And especially by surfacing the most relevant influencers for the given objectives of that campaign, we can be very confident that by the time we get into execution, that's much less of a concern.
So related to that, obviously all of your experience you're also putting into the technology. And one thing I learned when interviewing a lot of your executives was this concept of first-party data.
Yep.
So if you're new to the scene, you have no track record. You don't know who is going to provide what results. But because Open Influence has worked with so many campaigns, you have that, and you infuse your data with that. Can you talk a little bit about that and its advantage for companies that work with you?
Yeah, so we use, obviously, all of the available platform data, but we have a pretty substantial set of first-party data as well, both from the influencers themselves, as well as information that we have across the history of all of our campaigns. So that's everything from kind of campaign history, payment information, responsiveness, quality of content, and other kind of specific data points around, maybe there's something that came up in the course of a campaign, and one specific influencer was very helpful in kind of working through those challenges. It's good to know that information, but we take all of those different data points and we add that to our larger data set. So we're not looking just specifically at things like likes and comments and follower count. we're looking at the totality of what does that influencer look like and what is it like to work with them.
So switching gears a little bit, different social channels. So when people think of influencer marketing today, Instagram, YouTube, or Snapchat come up.
Yep.
Open Influence recently became a Pinterest influencer marketing partner.
Yep.
I've had brands on LinkedIn reach out to me as a B2B influencer. So how do you help your clients, and is there a role that technology plays in navigating which channels they should be engaging with influencers on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do a lot of work up front to understand what are the objectives of that campaign, and what are we really hoping to get out of it. Is it transaction? Is it awareness? Is it kind of broader social conversations around that content? And once we understand what those objectives are, then we're able to kind of better direct the platform that might be most effective for, the types of content that might be most effective. In some cases, an image really does speak 1,000 words. In other cases, a video is going to be far more effective, or a story. In some cases, Pinterest might be the best platform based on who we're trying to reach or what the objectives of the campaign are. In other cases, it could be Snapchat or Instagram. So really understanding what those objectives are up front are going to help guide both the platform that's selected as well as the type of content that needs to be created.
So we've talked a lot about technology. Maybe some of you in the room are thinking, well, how can my company begin to leverage this AI? Do you have any advice for those in the audience that are looking to better leverage or begin leveraging AI as part of their influencer marketing? Any advice that you can give them as to how to start in that process?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really unique to each individual brand and kind of how they're looking to execute against it. AI can mean a lot of different things. So there's image recognition. Are you looking to surface content? Are you looking to identify similar types of content? There's aspects of machine learning where you have tools that can not only understand the context of different pieces of content, but can evolve as your data set evolves and the needs of the brand evolves. And then you've got obviously things like character recognition and keyword identification and things like that if you're just looking for specific conversations, as well as understanding the connections between influencers or audiences. So I think understanding really the objectives of your brand is going to be the key starting point to say which of all these tools that are out there is the right tool for me.
Awesome. Well, I think our time is about up. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. The role of technology is something that is not talked a lot about at influencer marketing summits or conferences like this, but it is a critical piece, and the technology, as you can hear from Open Influence, really is developing. So thank you very much, and hope you all have a great day.